is Tiffany and I'm with Creative Gift Packaging. Today I'm going to show you how to take a 10-inch work wreath and a cross and make a scarecrow. Some of the items you're going to need is a straw wreath or some straw, 2 rolls of 10-inch. I'm choosing Burgundy for the hat and Burlap for the face. And then we've got some scraps of different colors that we're going to use as patches and things. You don't have to have these. These are just to give it a little extra decoration. We're also going to use one of our 7-inch Gerber daisies, a couple of our berry picks, and a maple leaf pick, and then some various ribbons and some tinsel wrapping. So to get started, what you're going to want to do, just kind of set some of this out of the way. We'll need that in just a few minutes. And you're also going to need some zip ties or cable ties. I'll show you what to do with these shortly. They'll come in really handy. Okay, so first, go ahead and take the tags off of all your frames. And your cross will come to you in 2 pieces. You'll just want to slip it together, and it'll also have a zip tie with it. Just go around where you attach the 2 together. Pull it tight. And then you can just use a pair of scissors to snip that off with. Okay, so we're going to set that to the side. The first thing we're going to do is make the face of the scarecrow. And what you're going to want to do is take just the inner ring on your wreath. You're not going to need any of these ties, so I will just twist them around just to hide them, and that way they're not in my way as well. Okay, so you'll go ahead and pull all of your outer ties out. And you can use Jute burlap, you can use the Jascatina burlap, which is what I have right here. You can use just normal burlap rolls that we carry. I just like this one better because it's a little more stiff. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this off to the side, gather my end, and I will start on the edge of my frame. And this is a completely different technique. It's not like the poofs or anything like that. So you just lay your end in, give it a couple twists. And don't worry about your ties sticking out right now. We'll go hide those here in a minute. That way you won't see them. And what you'll want to do is you'll go from top to bottom. And you'll just pull the mesh across. You don't really make poofs here. And you'll spin your wreath around. And you don't want to stretch it tight. You want to stretch it to where it's going to cover your frame. If you stretch it too tight, you're gonna have gaps and it's not gonna cover your frame well. Okay, and this is where some of the zip ties come in. If you want to, you can add another branch or another set of branches to your wreath frame, but to me it's just easier to grab a zip tie. So, and you will go in between 2 of your ties. Just tighten your mesh down there. And just snip that off. And you're going to want to go back and forth over the whole wreath until it's full. And you only use the zip ties in the center. The only reason I do it is to make it a little more full. You don't have to. You can just use your existing ties that are here. It's completely up to you. Just trying to twist that in. And you just keep zigzagging your mesh back and forth. You can use 21-inch mesh. Either way, 10-inch you just don't have as much waste to me. And your mesh is going to stick together like to itself here. There's not much you can do about it. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. And make sure when you are using the zip ties that you're securing them pretty tight, because if you don't, they're going to slide around, just like I just did. Okay. We've got just a couple more loops really quick. And if you're using really thin mesh, as far as if you're using like a cream, you'll want to go over it twice just because it's very sheer. This is not as sheer as some of our other mesh. It just really depends on the look you're wanting to go for. So we're at our last tie, so I'm going to go ahead and finish it off. Okay, and I leave about a 3-4 inch tail just so I can have it tucked behind so you won't see it. Okay. And you'll have about a half a roll left, so you could do 2 out of 1 roll of 10-inch. Okay, so next what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take all your ties and just kind of push them behind the mesh or behind the wreath frame, whichever. And this is just to hide them so you don't see. And you can pull this around to make it rounded and even. Okay, so you're going to have a little gap at the top, and this is where the cross comes in. I'll take a couple zip ties. on this gap, what you're going to want to do is take your cross. I'll slide the two closest to the bottom up. And these two ties right here you're not going to use. They're going to be on the inside. What I like to do with them is I actually will take my wire cutters and just cut the tinsel off of them. That way it's out of the way. And you can actually reuse this to do the eyes on the Scarecrow as well. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, so once you have those cut off, try and pull all your ties up to the top. And these 4 ties right here, you're not going to use. So you can just either clip them off like I did on the bottom, or just tuck them behind. Either way, because you're not going to see them. And I will take the 2 ties at the top and slide them up. So we're going to use these to make the hat. Okay. Alright, so now that you've got your ties clipped off, you find the center and you will slide the cross down in. And then you'll take a couple of zip ties and just secure it. Just kind of make sure it's even. Those off. And don't worry about the little gap right here. You're not going to see it once you get the mesh on. I'm going to take my ties and pull. So the cross part here is going to be the brim of your hat, and this is going to be the top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start the top of the hat, and then we'll do the brim. And what you're going to need to do here, I'm going to use a solid. You could use plaid, you could use anything you like. Alright, so you're going to want to cut these, I think it was 20 inches. Actually it's 24 inches, so you're going to want to cut these at 24 inches. You can either measure them out and cut them with scissors, or we like to use a rotary cutter, so I'll measure it out. You're going to need 4 of these at 24 inches. So once you get your 4 pieces cut at 24 inches, you're going to want to take, and you'll use these 2 ties right here on the top of the cross, and these 2 ties right here. So just gather up one end, put it in the set of ties, give it a twist, and then just stretch it up to the top. And this doesn't have to be tight, loose, what have you. It's just as long as it's not pulled, stretched so tight that it's just really thin. So. Okay, and you'll go ahead and place another one in the same tie down at the bottom. And you can untwist the tie, or you can just retie over it. It's up to you. And you'll go into the same tie at the top. And once again, you don't have to worry about the color of the ties once we get the hat finished. will hide the ties just like we did on the face. And you'll have a little extra mesh left at the top. We'll just tuck that behind here in just a moment. I think what I'm going to do, this is a little sheer, so I'm going to go ahead and take and add another piece right down the center, just to hide it. And this is where you can use a piece of the tie that you cut off. You can just take and put it around and make your own tie. And this is just to give the hat just a little more fullness, so it's not so sheer. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to take all this top and just tuck it in behind the hat, back in the center. And I'll take another zip tie. And you can pick these up at any local hardware store. You just want to zip tie this down so that you don't, it makes it a little cleaner for the finished product. Okay, so now that you have the top of your hat done, we're going to do the brim of the hat. And you can do it two ways. You can do the ruffle technique, which is taking and cutting an 18-inch strip. Laying it flat and pleating it or ruffling it, gathering it in the middle, and you can tie it in to the ties. Like that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the poofs across the hat because I don't want it so frilly, because I'm going to go back and add some straw and things to it. That way it looks a little more like fall. So, just going to gather my mesh, stick it in a set of ties. And this is a basic method, just like you would do a wreath. Just take and make your little poops. And I might go over this twice as well, just until I get the desired fullness that I want. And if you wanted a larger version of this, you could always use the 24-inch wreath brain and the 28-inch cross. You can really let your imagination run wild. If you do the larger version of it, I would recommend using 21-inch mesh and not 10-inch mesh, just so that you will have enough coverage. Because the 10-inch I don't think would be wide enough to do this. And you just basically work your way around the rectangle. And I think I'm going to go ahead and go over it again. I like really full, fluffy wreaths. So I'm just going to, all you have to do is go back over the same exact ties. You don't have to untie them or anything like that. You just go back over them and twist the mesh in. And I'm using about 10 inches of mesh for each poof. So I'll pull it out 10 inches and gather it. You can use, if you want bigger poofs, you can use more mesh. If you want smaller poofs, use less mesh. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and take, leave about a 3 or 4 inch tail and cut it. And tuck where I cut the mesh behind. So there you have your face and your hat. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a few scraps of mesh and cut some squares out of it. I'm not going to use those two. I'm also going to go ahead and take a piece of ribbon. It's going to be about 12 inches long. And I'm just going to put this around the top of his hat just to kind of give the brim a little bit of definition so you'll know that's where the top of his hat is. Sometimes it's easier to have a little help with this, but and don't worry if you got glue on the mesh like I did, because I'm going to cover that up with some of the flowers. So, just set that off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and add my little picks and sprays in before I patchwork on it. And if you're going to use a flower, my best suggestion is just take and pull the head of the flower off. This one's secured in there pretty well, so I'll just cut it. I'm going to go ahead and hide these white ties really quick. All you gotta do is push them in towards the center. Pull them through. Pull your mesh around so you don't see them. So now I'm gonna take these little berry sprays. They're berries and burlap. I'm just gonna kind of slide them out. I think we're gonna put this little arrangement. I'll just take a couple and stick down into the hat. And just make sure they poke through the back to where you can secure them also with a zip tie. And then I'm going to layer it with one of our leaf sprays. Like so. And then I'm going to glue the sunflower down at the bottom. So, whoop. Once you have them kind of positioned where you want them, go ahead and take another zip tie and just secure them to the frame. Kind of like so. Okay. I'm going to take one of our, I think I said it was a sunflower, but it's actually a Gerber daisy. You can use a sunflower or any flower you want. My glue gun was working. Put a little hot glue on it. I'm going to take and glue this down here. Just make sure you don't touch your fingers to the hot glue because it is very hot. Alright, so it's starting to look more like a scarecrow. Okay. And you can do some little patches if you've got like scraps. This is from one of our other projects. What I do is just take and cut some little strips. I think we've got cream ivory, two-tone moss gold. I've got red gold, two-tone, and then I've got some navy. But you don't have to use these colors. You can use any colors you have laying around. It's a good way to use up scraps. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and cut a couple little squares to make it look like patches. They don't have to be the same size. They don't have to be square. They can be triangle, rectangle, however you want to do it. And it doesn't matter if they fray or not. because he is a scarecrow. Okay, and I'm not going to use all these, I'm just going to use a few. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a little bit of hot glue. And you could also use ribbon if you wanted to, if you want to take scraps of ribbon and glue on, which I might actually do. Just put a little bit of hot glue. Drip glue gonna work. And you don't have to put a ton of hot glue because you don't want to see it through the mesh. You can just add your little patches. I think I'm gonna layer a couple of them. Just try and choose colors that don't blend too much. I thought that would be good, but when it's by itself, it almost blends right in. So let's use a little bit of cream. Take a little bit of moss, and if you want to make it a little more ragged, you can just pull a couple of the strands off and give it a little ragged edge. And if you don't want to touch the hot glue with your hands, you can always take your scissors or anything and lay down on it, just enough to attach it to the wreath. You don't have to have a ton of them. You can use 1 or 2 pieces. You could use more than that. Since I've got the flowers and stuff in it, I'm just going to use 1 or 2. Alright. So now we've got his hat done. Well, it's a little crooked, but scarecrows aren't perfect. So there's his hat. Now I'm going to do his base. So for his eyes, some of the branches that you cut off earlier, just take and roll them up and kind of make a little spiral. And you could use buttons if you wanted to do that, what have you. It really just what I have on hand. So instead of throwing it out, we'll just go ahead and reuse it. So you got his little eyes. Take a little piece of black for the center of his eye. Glue. Press it down. Take your little piece of black and just glue it in the center of the eye. This one's wanting to twist on me for some reason. Okay. And you can take a piece for his mouth as well. I'm just making a little smiley face. And you don't have to use black for his mouth. It's just what we had on hand that we had already opened for another project, so that's what I'm going to use. And you can just bend little hooks in this and hook it through the mesh. Pinch down and it'll stay. Well, I said it'll stay, but it's coming back out. Okay. So there is that. Now what we're going to do is nose. I know most scarecrows don't have a pointy nose, but let's just see what we can come up with. You'll just want about a 10-inch square of mesh. Use the same color as what you use for his face. You'll fold that in half and then just start rolling it to kind of form a cone shape. And you're going to think this is awful long for a nose, but I'm going to cut most of it off. So. And you're going to want to take and just tuck the end of it in. Take some hot glue. I'm just making a little tube for his nose. Don't glue your fingers to it. Once you've got that glued, just a little roll of mesh. Just take and run some glue around the edge of it. And just hold that in for a few minutes just to get it to where it's in place. Okay. So you can leave him like this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him a little bit of a bow and some straw hanging out. We'll see. So I'm going to put him a little bow down here, give him a little bow. So all you got to do, this is just a basic simple little bow. Pull out about 12 inches of your ribbon. This can be wired ribbon, deco mesh ribbon, whatever you want to use. Just make a loop. Twist it and make another loop. He doesn't need anything fancy, he's just a scarecrow. So. And then you'll cut your ribbon for your other tail. Take a piece of floral wire. Doesn't have to be very long. And just go around the center of the bow. Give it a couple twists. Pull the tails down. It gives you a little simple bow. And you can take and run it through the bottom of the frame down here. Give your wire a couple twists. And if you wanted a big elaborate bow, you could do that. I just think being a scarecrow, it needs to be a little simpler. Okay. Mesh back around. Let's get it centered. Alright. So you can leave it like that. Or you can add some straw. We're going to see how well this works. I haven't added straw to any of them that I've done so far. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is a 18-inch straw wreath that we sell. It's shrink wrapped, so you got to cut that off of it. This has a string around it similar to a fishing line. All I'm going to do is clip that string. That should be plenty. Alright, so I'm going to take and just pull this apart a little bit. Just to give me a couple ends. And you can take your scissors and cut it. I'm going to take and stuff some of this up in this hat. And you're going to want to kind of try and keep it in a bundle. That way you can tie it in with yet another. This might be more of a mess than some people want to deal with, but I think it's going to make it look absolutely cute. I'm just going to do about 4 little bundles in here just to give it a little bit of something. Actually, I think I'm just going to do 3 little bundles. Okay. So you can add him a little bit of straw. You can do the same thing around his neck as well. just going to take one bundle and put it around his neck really quick. And then we'll fluff it out. Pull this bow back up through. And there you have it. You can add more straw if you want more around the neck of it. It really just all depends on how you want it. Another variation that you can do that we did as an example. Let's tuck his ties down. As you can also do an elf for Christmas or Santa Claus. You could do a witch for Halloween. Just let your imagination run wild with this. If you have any questions, just give us a call, let us know. We'll be happy to help. Thank you for watching and have a good day.